and we're very, very proud to have such an international group of people here to help us observe the simultaneous syzygy of Constitution Day in the United States, the continuing observance of the 800th anniversary of Magna Carta, and the 10th anniversary of the incredible Brooklyn Book Festival. And parts of our session today are bookend events, and we'll be reprising some of the presentations on Sunday here in this room with some of the authors. So we're very, very excited to have you all here. We're going to just leap right in, and today you will definitively learn the answer to why old bits of vellum with abbreviations in Latin endures in some way to this day, why those bits are like genomes that found their way into the DNA of this country and around the world. And to begin, I think it's especially fitting to introduce my friend of many, many years. She demonstrates how much you can accomplish coming from Suffern, New York, where we all, Marla and Liz and I, went to high school together. But she has had a very distinguished legal career, 40 years in law, 23 years in practice, primarily defending insurance, major insurance coverage cases, and then 17 years as a very senior federal executive in 6 different agencies, including the White House, Department of Justice, USAID, and most recently in the Department of Labor. And she is currently the president of the beautiful, gorgeous, and incredibly difficult to get into, Groucho Marx would really want to get into, the Cosmos Club on Washington, D.C. So please give, and the reason that we're beginning with Elizabeth Medaglia, is that for 6 years she chaired the ABA Standing Committee on the Law Library of Congress. And in that role, among many, many other things, she single-handedly saw through from beginning to end the development of traveling exhibit of facsimiles, which is going around the United States for 2 years, will ultimately have a version, hopefully permanently in state capitals around the United States, and which this week and next is in Brooklyn this week downstairs in our student lounge, and next week it will go to the Borough Hall. The number of contracts and questions about security, Liz, that I've gotten from the borough president was really puzzling me, and I suddenly realized that I think he thought we were actually sending the Magna Carta over there. Though that is not the case, I can assure you that our exhibits are more readable. Elizabeth Medaglia.
Thank you, Nick, for that most generous introduction. And I'm delighted to be here to talk about the traveling exhibit. I hope you've had a chance to see it in the student lounge downstairs, or we'll see it in the Borough Hall. There's not only the exhibit, but there's a companion video that explains some of the items. Today, on Constitution Day, exhibit sets identical to the one here are on display in London in the UK, and in the United States at the Idaho Supreme Court in Boise and at the Minnesota Supreme Court in St. Paul. Today's program is about Magna Carta's legacy and the future, so it's fitting to begin with a traveling exhibit, which focuses on Magna Carta's legacy in America, and through that legacy looks ahead to the future. Why was the traveling exhibit created? It grew out of the close relationship between the Law Library of Congress and the ABA Standing Committee on the Law Library of Congress. A little history. The Law Library of Congress was created by statute in 1832 to give the United States government a comprehensive collection of law resources. It now contains the largest collection of law books and law resources in the world. Its rare books document the history of Western legal heritage in approximately 60,000 volumes, dating from as early as the 12th century. The Law Library provides specialized research services to the U.S. Congress and other branches of the federal government, and reference services to the legal community, professional researchers, and the general public, that last piece being very important because we are the general public. The Standing Committee was created by the ABA 100 years later in 1932 to serve as the ABA's voice concerning the continued development, enhancement, and operation of the Law Library of Congress. It collaborates with the law librarian and others seeking to increase the law library's visibility and the number of law students, lawyers, and members of the general public who use it. Several years ago, the Law Library was working to bring the Lincoln Cathedral King John 1215 Magna Carta to Washington as the highlight of a major exhibition on Magna Carta and its legacy in the United States. At the same time, the Standing Committee, of which I was chair, and the Law Library were brainstorming on ways to tell people around the country about the Law Library and its vast publicly available resources. So plans for the Library of Congress exhibit, Magna Carta, Muse and Mentor, and the ABA Law Library exhibit, Magna Carta Enduring Legacy 1215 to 2015, progressed in tandem. Muse and Mentor, with the real objects, was exhibited at the Library of Congress November 6, 2014 to January 19, 2015. Enduring Legacy was launched in Boston in August 2014 and has confirmed exhibition scheduled well into 2016. Enduring Legacy substantially expands the reach of information the Law Library of Congress put together about Magna Carta and how it relates to today and the future. It also educates people about the Law Library. So how did we create this exhibit? You know, we faced a common conundrum, ideas versus money. We needed a design to help raise money, and we needed money to pay for a design. The Law Library staff, principally rare book curator Nathan Dorn, who's the star of the video that's the companion to the exhibit, chose the images and drafted the text. Various stakeholders reviewed and all agreed to the text and images. We navigated our way through the ABA bureaucracy and the Library of Congress bureaucracy. We established a fundraising subcommittee that met by conference call frequently, like every 2 or 3 weeks, for 2 years. Some of our assumptions didn't pan out, and we had to adjust our strategies. Finally, we had just enough money to pay for the design work and a couple sets of exhibits. But we didn't have anything to show potential donors until the August 2014 launch in Boston, Massachusetts at the ABA annual meeting. There, hundreds of people saw the exhibit, and shortly thereafter, requests to display the exhibit and donations increased substantially, and we were on our way. I thought I'd show you a few images from the banners, kind of introduce some of the cast of characters for today. Everything shown on the banners, except the Lincoln banners downstairs, except the Lincoln Cathedral Magna Carta itself, is from the Library of Congress collections and was part of the Muse and Mentor exhibit at the Library of Congress. Okay, that's King John, the villainous and miserly ruler who pushed the barons so far that they forced him to agree to Magna Carta. This small 14th century manuscript contains Magna Carta, the Charter of the Forest, and the Statutes of England. This is Sir Edward Coke, the most prominent jurist in 17th century England, whose interpretation of Magna Carta came to the colonies in this book that's shown, Institutes of the Laws of England. This image is from Thomas Jefferson's copy of the book. And this is a painting of a 15th century jury in court from an illuminated manuscript made in the 15th century. Next, the habeas corpus banner is titled Freedom from Unlawful Imprisonment, and this shows ethnic Japanese people at Manzanar Relocation Center in California in 1943. This is from the banner on Limitations on Executive Power. It's an editorial cartoon from 1952 opposing President Truman's ultimately unsuccessful attempt to nationalize the steel industry during the Korean War. Finally, on the Magna Carta and Culture banner is this image of John Philip Sousa's sheet music for his Magna Carta March, written in 1927. There's text and more wonderful images on each banner, so please visit the exhibit. As of mid-September, the exhibit has been displayed in 24 cities in 18 states, the District of Columbia, and England. 5 more cities and 4 new states are confirmed on its future schedule, and more requests continue to come in. Over 30,000 people have seen it. Finally, Nick asked me to give a few personal comments about being at Runnymede on June 15th. In June, my husband and I visited England and went to Lincoln, Salisbury, and London, allowing us to see all 4 remaining King John 1215 Magna Cartas. The ABA organized programs in London to celebrate Magna Carta's 800th anniversary. The banners, set this downstairs, were displayed at the ABA Conference Hotel, and after the meeting were turned over to our British colleagues for display in England. They're being displayed in Surrey, near Runnymede, in London, and ultimately will be permanently displayed at the Magna Carta Educational Center that's being created in Surrey. June 15 at Runnymede was a joyful festival with local offerings, students' specially made flags and entertainment, for example, and pomp and ceremony fit for a queen. We'd heard Runnymede was boggy, but the ground was firm that day. We were told to expect cold, rainy weather, but the day was warm and beautiful and sunny. The London Philharmonic played, the world-renowned Temple Church Choir sang, and the Knights Templar wore their white cloaks with red crosses. A new commemorative sculpture created by Hugh Locke, who's here today, was installed. In attendance were the Queen, Prince Philip, Prince William, Princess Anne and her husband, the Prime Minister, the U.S. Attorney General, and many other dignitaries. The Queen unveiled a commemorative plaque during the main ceremony, and immediately thereafter, the ABA's memorial, installed at Runnymede in 1957, was rededicated. Until 2015, this ABA memorial was the only structure at Runnymede Meadows commemorating Magna Carta. Princess Anne spoke eloquently, and following the rededication, some bar leaders, including myself, were introduced to her. She graciously chatted with each of us for a few minutes. I was very proud to be a lawyer and to see the commitment of the ABA and the U.S. legal profession to the rule of law and Magna Carta's other fundamental principles. And I take the opportunity to encourage all law students and young lawyers to include bar involvement in your professional development plan. It's rewarding and an excellent way to give back to our noble profession. And I want to close with a picture of the photo that of the ABA Magna Carta Memorial at Runnymede that the London Times published on page 1 of its June 16 issue, as is capturing that extraordinary day. Yes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and that little blue dot over there is me. So, thank you very much.
Liz, thank you for being with us and for making really this day possible. And that was an extraordinary day. Marla was not in that picture because she was attempting to get as close as possible to Prince William. And he was over with Hugh Locke, otherwise occupied. You're in for a real treat now. I'm going to introduce, we've just had one of our longest time friends here and now one of our newest friends for life. He will know that when Marla and I show up at his cottage in the Cotswold for a visit. We've met recently, but I've heard 4 of his lectures, and you're really going to have an incredible historical insight into the origins and endurance of the concept of Magna Carta. Derek Taylor studied law and history at Oxford and then embarked on an incredible journalistic career which involved him covering 5 wars in several major regions, including Ireland, the Middle East, Africa, and that real hot spot, the United States. Some of you may recall when you see his tan, fit self here, and we're very grateful that he and Maggie have interrupted a visit to their place in Spain to be with us here today. But you may recall, you may recognize Derek because during the Iranian hostage crisis, when U.S. passport holders were expelled, his broadcasts nightly for Nightline were the only source of news for U.S. television viewers about what was going on over there. So with that, I give you with great thanks and anticipation Derek Taylor. Derek.